That being said, we got to talk Elon Musk. Elon Musk single-handedly had more influence over this election than any one individual probably in recent years. And so many other things that I'm going to talk about as it pertains to this conversation, because it is a layered conversation. You can't talk about one part without talking about the other. But this is what we know. As I told you before, the playbook for the Republican Party hasn't changed. I gave you the quote by Lyndon B. Johnson. You want to have the poorest white man feel like he's better than the most esteemed black man, and he'll give you he won't even question your hand in his pocket. But if you give him something to look down on, he'll take the money out of his pocket and give it to you. It also speaks to the sentiments of the Democrats of yesteryear is the GOP of today. And don't look at title. Look at behaviors. Look at ideologies. Lyndon Johnson was a Democrat. Listen to his ideology. Fast forward to present day. Republicans, similar ideologies. Sometimes we get too caught up in the titles and we stop looking at the pattern of behavior. The pattern of behavior will never lie. So don't focus so much on the title as much as the pattern of behavior. And what do we see from the pattern of behavior of the GOP of today? It looks just like if you just got rid of all of everything around it and looked at the political ideology of the GOP today and look at the political ideology of the Democrat of yesteryear, you will see they're one and the same. So how does Elon Musk play into this election? Well, several things. One, Elon Musk took the playbook directly from Cambridge Analytica. Remember, I told you, they not reinventing the wheel, they just putting rims on it. So it's the same stuff repackaged to look different. Same playbook though. What do we know about Cambridge Analytica? In 2016, it was a company called Cambridge Analytica, and basically what they did was source data from social media algorithms in so many different places around the internet. They would source all of this data and then they would sell it for political influence. And so now you had a rise of a bunch of fake, ironically, fake news. You had a bunch of fake posts. You had a bunch of fake outrage. You had a bunch of fake groups all created to paint certain public perceptions about particular candidates. And so it was so widespread. A couple of people did some great documentaries on it, but check out the documentary on Cambridge Analytica. I forgot the exact title, but you could just Google Cambridge Analytica documentary, and I'm sure it'll come up. So Cambridge Analytica, it was proven that they were, through misinformation campaigns, able to sway the election in 2016, and there was influence on the election in 2020 as well. Seeing this play out, you notice one of the big talking points that the Republicans had this year was censorship, because you have a lot of outright racist people that had platforms that at the surface seems harmless. It just seems like an insecure person with a bullhorn talking into a silo. But when you add the power of social media to that insecure person with the bullhorn talking into a silo, all of a sudden that silo gets bigger. So they realize the dangers of giving platforms to people without the really emotional awareness or intelligence to not speak to the worst in human beings. So Cambridge Analytica, this company, was able to use data, because the greatest commodity is information. The most valuable companies in this world is not just valuable for the goods and services that they provide, but for the amount of data that they collect. So Cambridge Analytica was collecting an overwhelming amount of data, and then they were in turn using that data to create disinformation and misinformation campaigns to sway the election. Now, let's look at what Elon did. Elon acquired Twitter. It was a $44 billion acquisition. The crazy thing about it is, I don't think Twitter was necessarily for sale at the time that this promotes. So he just came out the gate, and correct me if I'm wrong, again, to my knowledge, Twitter was not for sale at the time. I'm assuming he looked at what, just gathered some information on what's the most vulnerable or easily accessible social media platform and set his sights on Twitter. Acquired Twitter for $44 billion. It was a lot of back and forth. He's in, he's out, he's in, he's out. It's a deal, it's not a deal. I told people back then when he acquired Twitter, Elon Musk is easily one of the most dangerous human beings that exist in this country and in the world today for a multitude of reasons. You can tell a tree by the fruit that it bears. And if Elon Musk is the fruit, then we have to look at that tree. And that tree is evident. He is the son of apartheid. Elon Musk is literally the son of apartheid. So he was born and indoctrinated by apartheid. So hold on to that thought for a second, because that's just the foundation upon which I'll continue to build. Now, at the surface, we just think it's another businessman, billionaire mogul acquiring a social media platform. But when you peel back the layers, remember, the most valuable companies in the world, I'm talking about trillion-dollar valuations, they're not just valuable for the goods and or services they provide, but for the amount of data that they can collect. Whether you're talking about Meta, whether you're talking about Alphabet, whether you're talking about Tesla, whether you're talking about Amazon, it doesn't matter. The amount of data that they collect is what makes them so valuable. So data is the biggest commodity. And when you acquire something like Twitter, you acquire tons and tons and tons of metadata. So this is what I hypothesize. Elon Musk, seen how Cambridge Analytica was able to influence the connection, and say, what if instead of just buying the data, what if I just buy the social media platform? Then I'll become a media platform that can dictate and control the propaganda that I want to see. Again, remember what I told you. Appeal to the desires, they'll create the need themselves. They'll justify the why if you can appeal to the innermost desires. Elon Musk got the platform. This is not conjecture. Racial tension, racial hatred, racial post increased specifically against black people 195% from the time it was made known that Elon Musk was taking over and Twitter now belongs to Elon Musk. The hate speech came out in droves and increased exponentially, because what Elon did was he acquired a social media platform and then postured it under the guise of free speech. We hate censorship. I'm not going to censor anybody. This is going to be free speech. Meanwhile, the number one voice on Twitter is Elon Musk. He's a megalomaniac. Listen to what I'm saying. You remember I told you, you tell a tree by the fruit that it bears. We know if he's the fruit, we know what tree that he's come from. And then after you look at the tree for the fruit that it bears, you then have to look at who his circle of influence is, who he chooses to associate and align with. Elon Musk could have aligned with the Democratic Party just as much as he could align with the Republican Party. But he, in his brilliance, he's going to choose the path of least resistance. What he needed was influence over the regulatory committees that prevent him on the business side of things from being able to do business the way he wanted to do business. He had a far less chance of accomplishing that by aligning with the Democratic Party than aligning with the Republicans. So in that, he knew that if he can align with the Republicans, he can align with Donald Trump. When he get into office, then he's going to be able to use that influence to advance his own agenda. Sound like somebody else, don't it? Oh, Trump. Again, understanding that he can use that influence to perpetuate and propagandize his agenda, and that's what he did. So Elon Musk saw the Cambridge Analytica play. He's seen how that played out, and then he had the evil genius. Okay, let me see if I can. Now, he acquired Twitter. Now he has a platform to create all of the propaganda that he wants. And ultimately, he turned Twitter/X into the very thing that he accused Meta and everything else of being during the previous elections. It's a silo for right-wing, racist, political talking points. And that's rampant, or evident by the 195% increase in racial narrative and racial tension and racial hatred towards black people since the acquisition. Remember, I have to reiterate, he's a son of apartheid South Africa. He came into this country illegally and worked illegally. Typical, again, it's the country immigrant. That's why all of it is laughable when you peel back the layers. But the reason why I'm talking about these things, because if you don't understand the why, history is bound to repeat itself. So we have to see the playbook and how they operated. And it's very clear. Anybody with real level of political awareness could see how clear this playbook was. Elon Musk used Twitter as a propaganda machine the same way they used Cambridge Analytica in the 2016 election to create disinformation and misinformation campaigns as it pertains to a whole host of things that transpire. So, why is he dangerous? Well, that's just one end on the political spectrum. The other end that you have to look at is, and when you look at his endeavors, okay, he have a quest to go to Mars. At the surface, that seems harmless. Okay, cool. You want to go to Mars. You some kid with an idea and a vision to go to Mars. All right, cool. I have my sentiments on that. We have so many things that we don't know about this planet. And we talking about Mars, whatever. That's neither here nor there. But now let's talk about Neuralink. Neuralink is another business endeavor that he have. Now, at the surface, the purpose of Neuralink is to use artificial technology and advanced technology to give a sense of normalcy to people born with certain birth defects, physical defects, and things like that. But with Neuralink, it is a chip that has to be implanted in the brain. So you think of it, somebody that never really had use of an arm, or use of a limb. And through the technology, artificial intelligence, creating some sort of appendage that speak directly to the chip that's in the brain and communicate. And now you can function in a normal way with an extension and appendage of a limb that you didn't have before in an effort to have a sense of normalcy. I promise you, at the surface, that's so noble. And I understand the perspective as somebody who believes in the innovation of technology. But then you can't look at those things without taking into account that in the hands of somebody with nefarious intentions, it becomes extremely dangerous. This is what I know for a fact. The military-industrial complex weaponizes all technology before it's used for general consumption by people. So now you look at his acquisition of Twitter, that's metadata. That's data that he can feed into learning algorithms, machine learning, as they call it, artificial intelligence algorithms to now enhance and combine with what he's doing for Neuralink. So again, on one end, you got just the political influence and the influence of having constantly a propaganda machine that you can paint certain narratives at all time, 24/7. And Elon runs Twitter as it is 100% a dictatorship. There is no checks and balance. There is no equanimity. There's just him and what he feel like should be the case. And that's what he's doing. So now when you have something as at the core, right? At the overarching premise, you're like, man, Neuralink seems so noble. But when you start peeling back the layers and you realize the ways it could be used for nefarious intentions, now you have to be like, I don't know. And now you have somebody that have all of the resources. He have all of the metadata that he sourced. He has all of the technological capabilities. It leaves a lot to be discerned by the imagination on ways he can use it for nefarious intentions. The biggest tool for control is propaganda. Remember, fear and ignorance are the psychologies and the behaviors that they implement to maintain control. Fear and ignorance. Propaganda perpetuates fear and ignorance at a level that's unprecedented. So Now, when you go back, what's one of the greatest demonstrations we've seen? And I don't want to say great because great put it in a different light. So let me change the language that I want to use. What's one of the most, I'm going to say, impactful and insidious and dangerous ways that we've seen propaganda used in modern history? Well, look at how America propagandized its perception of black people. People who have never met or had experiences with black people before have an idea about black people based on propaganda that has been perpetuated, and none of it is true. But when you have propaganda painting all black people in a certain light, the lowest hanging fruit is easy for somebody who's never experienced black people to accept that to be true without actually having the tangible experience. What's another dangerous way we've seen propaganda used? Okay, let's go back to World War II. Joseph Goebbels was Hitler's minister of propaganda. And through his disinformation, misinformation, and propaganda campaigns, he turned a country of people literally onto one subgroup of the country and made it socially acceptable for them to be killed in droves because the propaganda painted it that way. That's why propaganda is so insidious. So we have I can give you a multitude of representations of ideals of this propaganda that spin out of hand when there is no control, when there is no oversight. So it makes censorship to be a very unique conversation because the First Amendment gives us the right to free speech. And it gives us the right to be able to voice opinions, even those opinions that come across as generally unpopular. But now when you live in an age that you do, where that those types of opinions in a more primitive time would have just been that unpopular opinions, now they become the social norms. And that's why, although I will never fundamentally agree with censorship, I have to quote Idi Amin when it is alleged that he once proposed freedom of speech. I will always grant you. However, freedom after speech is a much different conversation. When you think of the ability that technology has now, that unpopular opinion becomes very dangerous when it now speaks to the school of thought for people with nefarious intentions. So where do you create that peace and harmony? Where do you draw the line? I'm going to be honest with you. I don't know. I can't, as I said, I can't fundamentally vie for free speech, to not have free speech, for the censorship of free speech. I am a believer in free speech, but there has to be more culpability and responsibility to the people that's standing on podiums and speaking to the worst, most insidious qualities of a particular demographic or a particular subgroup that makes them want to literally and physically harm another group or subgroup. That's way too far. And it has to have some sort of oversight, some sort of regulations. And I truly don't care what side of the aisle you stand on. What I know for a fact is propaganda in the wrong hands is more dangerous than any biological weapon that you can create. Because although a biological weapon has effects like that, the effects of negative propaganda becoming the social norm replicates itself over and over and over again for eternity. It's never ending. So when you look at Elon Musk and you look at the influence that he has, his acquisition of Twitter played into a much larger scheme to be able to influence the minds of the impressionable people that's looking for somewhere to spew their ignorance, fear, and hatred. And he allowed that to take place. And he created the platform, and he actually touts his platform on that level of free speech. Everybody is entitled to free speech, even if that free speech comes at the expense of someone else's peace of mind, of someone else's livelihood. That matters not. That's why I say Elon Musk is as dangerous as he is, because he, unbeknownst to the players at large. He unwittingly commandeered a social media platform and turned it into a silo where the worst of some of both racial sentiments and others can not only just speak, but be promoted. So Elon Musk played a huge part in the Republican Party, and all he's doing is leveraging those connections to serve his own interests and serve his own agenda. So watch the Tesla stock during this presidency. Watch, I'm telling you what to look for now over the next 4 years. Watch Tesla stock and Elon Musk wealth, right? Watch a lot of the challenges that he faced with the regulatory committees. He'll be able to operate with a level of impunity in all of his business endeavors. Pay attention to those things. That's what was the payoff for Elon. So yes, I'll spend $75 million of my own money for the Donald Trump campaign if it allows me to be able to get into seats that I would otherwise not be able to get into. This game is being played on such a dangerous level. It's a book that I encourage everybody to read. It's about Alan Dulles, and it's called Pawns on the Devil's Chessboard. Or it's called The Devil's Chessboard, but it's from that quote. And when you look at how the highest levels of government are operating, both on the left wing and the right wing, both liberal and conservative, the average person is just a pawn on the devil's chessboard. It's unfortunate, but this is a part of the reality that we're seeing play out in real time.